Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Beyond Our Borders. I'm Nestor Licanto, and this month we're going to talk a little bit about the broadcast and media and entertainment business in the Philippines. And I'm pleased to welcome as our guest Ms. Maribel Hernaez. She is the Managing Director for ABS-CBN Global for Asia Pacific. And those who may not know, ABS-CBN is one of the largest and most prestigious broadcast and media entertainment businesses in the Philippines. Welcome, Maribel.
Hello, Hafaday to all the viewers and all the listeners of Guam News in Guam and anywhere in the Asia Pacific region or probably in the world. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Pleasure to have you. I mentioned ABS-CBN. You've been with the company for about 20 years, worked your way all the way up to Managing Director. Tell us a little bit about the history of ABS-CBN and the founding family, the Lopez's.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's right. I have been with ABS-CBN even before I finished university. And but the history of ABS-CBN started way long before that, before I actually joined the company. So ABS-CBN is the pioneer broadcasting station here in the Philippines. So it's basically ABS-CBN that started television as we know it right now in the Philippines. It's actually the combination of two companies in the past. It's called Alto Broadcasting Station and Chronicle Broadcasting Network. So when it was merged way back before, it became ABS-CBN. And it became the pioneer in introducing television to the various homes of Filipinos in the Philippines. Way back then, you know, broadcasting as we know it is you have to have a television set and an antenna to be able to get news or entertainment in your homes. And then later on, ABS-CBN has been, you know, pioneering in terms of evolution or revolutionizing the way people actually watch television in the Philippines. Until, of course, we all know what happened during the martial law. The government had some issues with the family, the Lopez family, and sequestered ABS-CBN and then actually sent the owners of the company, Eugenio Lopez Jr. to prison. And for almost 14 years, ABS-CBN was off the air until you know, when democracy was finally restored way back in 1986, and ABS-CBN made a very, very good comeback. And can I just say that me talking about the history all over again, I'm having goosebumps as I'm telling the story. It never fails to really, you know, to really make me emotional when I talk about the history of the network, because it's really the history of ABS-CBN is basically the history of the Filipino people and on all the struggles that we have been through. So when ABS-CBN was back on air way back in 1986, it has been true to the commitment to again deliver you know, fabulous service, wonderful service, relevant service to the Filipinos. And during that time, another interesting story that I'd actually like to share with everybody was when Eugenio Lopez Jr., or we call him Kapitan, wanted to bring back ABS-CBN in 1986. He had to go back to the employees before who lost their jobs because the company was shut down and was sequestered by the government during that time. And then he asked the former employees, "Can you join me rebuild the network again? I don't know if it's going to be successful, but would you be willing to help me rebuild the network again?" And the employees from before, you know, without batting an eyelash, said yes. Kapitan, we are with you. And then from there, you know, one thing led to the other, and then ABS-CBN was able to go back to the #1 TV station rank in the Philippines. And another important milestone from that comeback in 1986 was in the 90s, way back in 1994, was when Kapitan said that I want ABS-CBN to be in the homes of Filipinos, not just in the Philippines, but anywhere they would probably be. So even before, you know, the government was talking about overseas Filipinos or having a department to actually serve the Filipinos, ABS-CBN through Kapitan was already in the forefront of thinking how to serve the Filipinos. So in 1994, the Filipino channel was born. And we had our initial broadcast through syndication in the United States. And then later on, 1997, we launched in the Middle East. And then after that, of course, Asia Pacific happened. And of course, Guam. In Guam, we are available in Docomo and of course, GTA. And the growth of ABS-CBN, not just in the Philippines and outside the Philippines, has been really tremendous, since that time. And I think another important milestone that I'd like to share in terms of the history of ABS-CBN was in being in the forefront of actually innovation was when we started venturing into the digital space. Yes. So way back in the late 90s to early 2000, that was when we introduced being able to view your content video on demand. So video on demand in the early 2000s was something that's not very, very familiar to us yet. But then we launched it through a box that we called Internet Protocol TV. So it used to be a big box. And with that big box, you have to, plug it in your TV, plug it in your internet, and internet connection during the time was very difficult to access. And then,
dial-up.
Right. And it really revolutionized the way people are actually viewing their content, because now the customer, the viewer, actually can choose when to stop, when to fast forward, and when to replay. So it was really groundbreaking. And then from then on, that was the time when we actually launched as well our OTT platform. OTT during that time as well wasn't a buzzword yet. And we had that until eventually it became I Want, and then it became I Want TFC as we know it right now. But of course, in the whole scheme of things, we all know what happened last year to ABS-CBN in the Philippines. So that's what I think is also one major milestone. I wouldn't say a very, very good milestone.
Yeah. I'll ask you a little bit. Yeah, I'll ask you a little bit about that a little later. But I wanted to also ask you about your programming overseas and what seems to be the most popular programming for overseas Filipinos.
Oh yeah. I have a lot to talk about the programming. Well, for the programming overseas, what we have offered for the Filipinos outside the Philippines would be a dedicated TV channel for those who are in North America, for those who are in the Middle East, Europe, or Australia, and even those who are in Guam. And so right now on our linear programming, this is actually coming from the survey or the ratings from Comcast in the United States. And it shows that Cardo Dalisay still reigns supreme on TV with Ang Provinciano. And interestingly, the new programs like Init sa Magdamag with Gerald Anderson, with JM De Guzman and Yam Concepcion are also top raters on the channel right now. And then we also have Wag Kang Mangamba, which is also a top rater, primarily because of the inspiration that the show actually gives to the viewers. And then, of course, the news would rate really, really well, TV Patrol. And just recently, we had a dedicated overseas newscast that's embedded on TV Patrol. So there's TFC News on TV Patrol. So that's also doing very well. And then, of course, on the musical variety, ASAP, the noontime show, is also a top rater. And as well as Showtime, which is our daily noontime show. So the classics, all of these programs, and of course, the movies are also doing well on the channel. And if we go on the OTT platform, these programs actually rate equally well. Interestingly, there's a new program that we launched. It's called His Into Her, which actually, came by storm and actually created a massive following among the young on our TV channel and even on our OTT platform. It actually stars Donnie Pangilinan, if you know, of course, Maricel Laksa and Anthony Pangilinan, he's already the son. Can you believe that? He's the son of Maricel Laksa and Anthony Pangilinan, a very, very good-looking, talented young man. And then, of course, and then there's Belle Mariano, a new artist that was signed up by ABS-CBN. She's called a Rice artist. So that's one also of the top raters that we have right now on TV station or in the channels that we have overseas. Yeah.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
When making the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich, people asked how I felt about burger places selling fried chicken. I'd say that's none of my business, just like making fried chicken is none of theirs. Get the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich. It's finger-licking good.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
You mentioned TV Patrol and the news division. I think you at one point were also part of the news operation. Tell us a little bit about the news for ABS-CBN and what your plans are for, like, the big event next year would be the presidential election.
Of course, even with what happened to ABS-CBN in the Philippines, I think the good thing that really came out of that is that we were able to actually push or accelerate the digital evolution of how we actually consume content, including news in the Philippines and even outside the Philippines. So even without our franchise in the Philippines right now, our news departments in the Philippines and even outside the Philippines are gearing already for the coming elections next year. So we'd still have our usual regional coverage and even our overseas coverage. So people will continue, and we guarantee that people will continue to get updated news whenever they need it, especially once the elections and the campaigns start to kick off in a couple of months from now. So it's going to be massive. It's going to be interesting. We can see the numbers right now. With 1 month to go before the registration of voters are finished here in the Philippines, and even for absentee voters, we are seeing numbers of registration that we have never seen before. And just by that, we all know that this is really going to be an interesting and controversial election, if I may put it. So we're ready. We're ready for that. Our news department's ready for that event. Very, very important event for Filipinos next year.
Yeah, this will be, I would imagine, a very historic election at the very least.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. I think every Filipino will be glued on their social media, on TV, on radio, getting updates on what's going to happen in the elections.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the franchising issue that you mentioned earlier. Explain, first of all, how it came about and then how it is going to be resolved.
Well, I just have to say that in terms of the resolution, of course it's in the hands of the government if they're going to give the franchise to us later on. But the issue basically came about when ABS-CBN made an application for the renewal of our franchise, our 25-year franchise. And then it was declined by the government due to a couple of reasons that they cited. I think everybody was able to see it on national television, and we even broadcast it on the Filipino channel. There were many points that the government raised say why ABS-CBN wasn't complying. And for each point, ABS-CBN, the management actually answered all of the issues that was raised in the Congress hearing. But unfortunately, even with all of the points that ABS-CBN and the proof, the evidence that ABS-CBN presented, it wasn't given to us during that time. And it's a very, very sad day for not just for ABS-CBN and its employees, or ABS-CBN and its numerous viewers in the Philippines and outside the Philippines, but it's actually a sad day for the media industry, because as mentioned, ABS-CBN has been around for almost 70 years, if not more than 70 years. And then franchise of ABS-CBN was given to the company, to the network, years before that. And this is the first time, except during martial law, that we have been denied to be able to broadcast on air, at least in the Philippines. But then again, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and we hope in the coming months, or probably in the coming years, or probably the new administration that will come in, whoever the new president will be, the new congressman will be, will reconsider eventually. But right now, there's no new application that's been made. But we hope later on that it can be granted. It will be granted. But again, like I said, ABS-CBN, even there's that roadblock that we faced last year. We're still very committed to actually serve the Filipinos. So now we're going heavy on digital. As I mentioned, we're on I Want TFC. We're on YouTube, on TFC IPTV. On YouTube, we're actually now the #1 YouTube entertainment channel in the whole of Southeast Asia. So we actually were able to overtake even the TV stations from Thailand or Indonesia. So it was a very, very welcome opportunity and turn of events for ABS-CBN. So now we're all focusing on that, on how to be able to harness the digital space to be able to still do our commitment to our viewers and the millions of kapamillas all over the world and in the Philippines.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
When making the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich, people asked how I felt about burger places selling fried chicken. I'd say that's none of my business, just like making fried chicken is none of theirs. Get the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich. It's finger-licking good.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
Yeah, there were many who saw the denial of the franchise as a freedom of speech issue, as a putting down of your news coverage. Can you speak to that?
You mean if it was a media issue? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it was to some it was a freedom of speech and a denial of news coverage sort of issue.
Yeah. Well, I will not speak on behalf of the company on that respect or for anybody. I'm going to share my personal opinion on that, and I'm saying this not because I'm from ABS-CBN, but I personally feel that yes, it is an issue of freedom of speech, denial of freedom of speech, because everybody can actually be able to say whatever they have to say or deliver content, especially if it's relevant content to anybody. But that has been denied to the network, and a lot of media organizations believe so. They actually sent letters of support to ABS-CBN. They actually sent letters of support to all the congressmen who actually were hearing the franchise application of ABS-CBN. But still, despite of that, it wasn't given to us. So of course, people have different opinions about the matter. And like I said, people wouldn't say that it's a denial of the freedom of speech. Definitely, there's a different opinion about that. And there are some who would say, yes, it's a denial of the freedom of speech. So yeah, personally, I think it is, because we have been of service. We have been delivering the news for the longest time, and suddenly that service denied to the millions of Filipinos inside and outside the Philippines. So yeah.
All right. In general, how has the pandemic impacted the media and entertainment industry in the Philippines?
Oh, I think the biggest impact of the pandemic, I could summarize it into probably 2 or 3 points in the media industry in the Philippines. And I have seen this for more than a year, how things have actually changed overnight because of the pandemic. I think the first one is our ability to be able to shoot content. So in the past, of course, especially for ABS-CBN, wherein we have at least 4 TV series that are running simultaneously on linear programming or on OTT programming, suddenly there's so much challenge to be able to shoot a TV series or even a live broadcast of a noontime show. So it has been very, very difficult and I'm speaking not just for ABS-CBN, I'm speaking even for the other networks who are actually doing regular shows. I suppose you guys there in Guam also experienced it at one point, when there was a lockdown, although probably the lockdown there isn't as stringent as the lockdown that happened here in the Philippines or in Asia in general. But yeah, I'm actually speaking to some companies in Thailand and Singapore, and they're saying that the lockdowns because of the pandemic is actually really taking so much toll in terms of the operations of the TV network. So that's number one. Number two really is on the advertisers, particularly here in the Philippines. Outside the Philippines, probably it's not as huge of an impact, or particularly outside Asia Pacific. But what we're seeing right now is because people are locked down in their homes and they're not going to go for vacations. They can't go on vacations. They can't ride airplanes. They can't go to restaurants. They can't go to malls for mall-wide sales. So it's really the advertisers that you really feel that their appetite for advertising was really affected by the pandemic, because even them, they don't know what's going to happen. Is this going to happen for just 6 months? Is this going to be for 1 year? And we all know, and ultimately, because a lot of businesses were affected, the employment also has been affected by employment of a lot of people has also been affected. So that generally is the impact of this pandemic to the industry. And I'm talking about the TV industry. The movie industry is also another one that's truly affected, because theaters are closed. And the theaters are closed, and the second, that we cannot shoot movies. You cannot shoot movies that will be just shot on Zoom. We tried doing that October last year. It was good, but after seeing 1 movie or 2 movies that are shot on Zoom, you wouldn't want to watch a 3rd or 4th movie on Zoom anymore, right? So the movies are definitely affected, and because of the very, very strict standards right now on how to shoot movies or TV series, the cost to actually produce content right now has been very affected as well. If it didn't double, it probably increased at least by 50%, because everybody needs to have a swab test or whatever, or a bubble. You have to stay in a bubble for 2 weeks to be able to shoot, which you don't usually do before. So those are the things that greatly affected the TV and media industry right now in the Philippines because of the pandemic.
Yeah, I imagine that you can't replicate the cinematic techniques of a feature film by Zoom.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Even the most talented director, I doubt, would be able to pull that off very, very, very well.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
When making the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich, people asked how I felt about burger places selling fried chicken. I'd say that's none of my business. Just like making fried chicken is none of theirs. Get the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich. It's finger-licking good.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
We've just got a couple of minutes left, Maribel. I want to give you the opportunity to greet your ABS-CBN viewers on Guam, and maybe make a pitch for some of your programming and movies that are to come.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that, Nestor. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and to all of our kapamillas who are in Guam and have been very, very loyal kapamillas since the beginning of time, since we're available in Guam. Thank you so much for your continued support to ABS-CBN and for being a loyal kapamilya. To all the fans of our teleseries, Provincianos, even our noontime show, Showtime. Thank you so much for your continued support, and thank you so much for the very, very warm engagement that we're getting from all of the viewers that we have in Guam. And I think I'd like to invite everybody to continue, of course, subscribing to the service of ABS-CBN that are available on Docomo and on GTA. And of course, for those who want to try out the OTT experience, meaning being able to watch your shows online, we also have I Want TFC. And the good news is, if you're subscribers of TFC on Docomo and on GTA, you could actually get TV everywhere access of I Want TFC. So you could have a taste of how to watch our content video on demand. And of course, another offering that I'd like to tell everybody is, even if movies are really difficult to come by in the theaters right now, our movies are also available on video on demand, on transactional video. So you can watch a lot of Filipino movies on two platforms. Actually, we have the KTX. It's like a stage hit platform or an events platform where you could watch your movies in events. So meantime that we don't have the theaters, KTX is our next to the best thing, in watching a movie in the theater. And then of course, I Want TFC also has premium VOD service where movies are made available. So thank you so much, kapamillas, for the support, and I hope you continue watching, and do let us know. We're available on all the social media accounts if there are any suggestions or any comments that you think ABS-CBN needs to do to further improve the service to all of you there in Guam.
Thanks, Maribel. Maribel Hernaez, who is the Managing Director for ABS-CBN Global for Asia Pacific. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All right. I'm Nestor Licanto. That's our show for this month. We'll see you again next month on Beyond Our Borders.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.